Welcome to episode number 33 of the Castbar. Patch 6.2 has been downloaded and millions are sweeping through Tanan. But how long can this truly last? With 6.2 comes a new raid and new race for World First. But where are our star gladiators? We take a closer look at voice chat, read some listener mail, and do a review of the Alliance capital, Stormwind. Thank you and enjoy. Welcome everybody to the Castbar, the World of Warcraft podcast channeling your content with no interrupts. Today is Sunday, June 28th at approximately 3:15 Pacific Standard Time. My name is Michael Schwahn, and with me I have Evan. No, I don't have Evan. I have Florian.
Yeah, I am not Evan in any shape, way, or form.
It is
That's
true.
Okay. How's it going?
It's going well. For those of you curious, Evan is not here again this week. He intended to be. But he went on a small road trip over the weekend, and then his vehicle broke down, and so he is unable to get home at the moment, and is working on sorting out, those real life problems. God, so real life can be so rude sometimes.
Yeah. Never just conveniently sits to the side when you want to do other important things like talk about WoW.
Yeah, I know, right? What could possibly be more important than that? Surely not, when a engine, I don't know, maybe an engine's on fire. I hope not.
Let's hope not, for Evan's sake.
I'm sure he's smart enough to not get that close to it. So what have you been up to this week, Florian?
Not much of anything. I've been trying to play what little of 6.2 I can. Kind of hard to do with a busy schedule.
Sure.
Well, it won't be as bad this week since we've got the holiday, so looking forward to getting a little more WoW time in.
Mm-hmm. I have unfortunately gotten to do none of 6.2. I accepted the quest to go do the stuff up at the Iron Docks, but that's as far as I've gotten currently. And that's because the Midsummer Fire Festival is a higher priority for me since I have to do that for the resolution thing. And my God, I thought this is just as bad as the Elders for the Lunar Festival, except every single zone has two places you have to go, because for the achievement you have to honor your flame and extinguish the opposing factions. Yeah, it's good fun. It's what I've been doing for the last 3 hours, and what I'll probably be doing throughout this entire show is mindlessly flying around across the world, accepting a quest to recognize that Blizzard put a bonfire in this location for 2 weeks.
Yeah, it sounds like you're having the time of your life right now.
Oh, buddy. Let me tell you what, I can just barely contain my excitement. Because there's so little that's involved with this this holiday event. It's not like even though I complained about School of Hard Knocks, at least it was actually something there. But there's not even a quest with this, so you're literally just kind of doing nothing besides just flying everywhere again. And I get to do this real soon for the Halloween one too. So oh boy. Because that's what that one is, too, is you fly all over the place and get candy from people because you're trick-or-treating. It's good times.
Yeah, well, that one's a little more fun, though, I think. The Halloween one, it's the only one I've really done. It's just, I don't know, you have the costumes, and it's kind of amusing.
Sure.
Whereas the Midsummer Fire Festival is just kind of, we need a summer holiday, so we just made this thing up.
You didn't need a summer holiday. They just felt like they wanted one. But let's go ahead and get into the news. Welcome to the news, everybody. So there's not exactly a whole lot new going on because everyone is just, soaking up 6.2. The first thing that I want to talk about, though, is that currently, Mythic is not available. Mythic, I believe, opens this Tuesday, which means that the race to World First will be up again, as the guild will be racing to see who can down Mythic Archimon before anyone else. If you are unaware, that is a very sought-after achievement. Some people are sponsored by people. I mean, it's not like, like World Championships in League of Legends where they're going to make like $1 million, but it is a very noteworthy thing that is very highly followed. The thing that I'm curious on, Florian, is that currently Heroic is only available. 6 guilds have downed Heroic Archimon since it opened on Tuesday. Those guilds are Example, Infinity, some Chinese name that I can't say, Honesty, Group Therapy, and Academia. Now, the thing that I notice immediately about this, and going to WoW Progress for this, is that the names that we're used to seeing that are real big, now we know Blood Legion broke up, but the other names that we're used to seeing as, those big contenders, Method, Paragon, etc., they're not even in here. And looking at WoW Progress, they're not even in the top 20. Why?
It's very odd, actually. It almost looks like they're not even doing this raid, to be honest.
Yeah, that seems real weird. Did something happen with them that I'm not aware of?
If there is, I didn't hear about it. And that's the kind of thing you would hear about. Like, I don't follow the hardcore raiding scene very closely, but even I heard about Blood Legion breaking up because that was big news. They were a major guild.
Yeah, and they've been around for a long time.
If something big had happened to somebody on the level of Method or Paragon, we would have heard about it. So, yeah, it's really strange that they're not jumping right into this. Maybe they just feel really confident that they can just jump right into Mythic and don't need to bother with Heroic.
Maybe. I mean, it's possible. Depending on, I still feel like they might want to go into Heroic because it gives you a little bit more practice on the Mythic fight. You get a little bit more involvement with it. But if they were doing, because they do it in the PTR, so maybe they just didn't feel it was necessary. But maybe being covered in Mythic Warforged Blackrock gear is higher than Heroic. It probably is. I don't know the exact numbers, but I imagine that they're very similar.
Yeah, probably pretty close. Let's see. Well, according to WoW Progress, their average item level is 705, so they should be able to hack it number-wise.
Well, yeah, that's real high. That's real high.
Yeah. Well, at least Method, but right now Method is 11 out of 13. For some reason, they have not killed Manaroth or Archimon. Whether that's because they can't or because they don't want to, I have no idea right now.
Seems real crazy. What page are they on?
They are on page, I just looked them up.
Paragon's on page 2 at 12 out of 13.
Yep. I couldn't even find Method, so I just typed it into the box.
Well, if they're 11 out of 13, that's a ways. There's a lot of guilds at 12 out of 13, so maybe they're just not concerned with it? Maybe? I don't know.
Maybe. They might be sitting this one out. Maybe they've got some issues going on, and it's like, we won't do this race. We'll just wait for the next one.
Seems weird. I don't know. And, like you said, maybe that'll change when Mythic comes around. Just seems real odd. Just because, even if people don't exactly, care about professional rating themselves, they generally have, the guild that they like to follow and stuff. If they have any involvement with it in any case. So, generally there's fan favorites, even if it's not quite as large as some other esport events.
Mm-hmm.
I guess we'll wait and see. I mean, it opens on Tuesday, and if Method, shows up and then just completely smashes everyone into the ground, Paragon maybe too, but I don't know. Maybe the fights are really hard. I know that they said that they're increasing the personal responsibility even higher with Hellfire Citadel. So maybe it's just too much for them.
It could be.
So
we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, maybe we'll get some new people up there, some new blood. One way to find out.
Perhaps.
Let Tuesday roll around. And as of Tuesday, patch 6.2 has gone live. Florian, have you done anything in 6.2?
I've done quite a bit. I've been all through Tanan, done a bunch of questing, done a bunch of the various types of missions and things. And so far, 6.2 kind of a mixed bag, I have to say.
Why do you say that?
Well, the first thing you get a new area opening up, the first thing you want to jump into is questing, because that's just what you do. And with Warlords of Draenor, we've had a really high bar set for the quality of the questing and the storytelling in the questing.
Okay.
Like, all the quests have flowed really well, there have been good storytelling, good cutscenes. Tanan Jungle, none of that. It's a lot of very short, disjointed quests. Many times quest chains just sort of ended with no real conclusion of any kind and no follow-up to get to the next quest. I feel like I've completed maybe a third of the quests available in Tanan Jungle, but I have no quests available in my quest log because they just don't connect to each other.
Oh, weird.
It's a very awkward, disjointed experience, and it almost feels like Blizzard just halfway finished it and then threw it out the door.
I unfortunately can't speak on it. As I said during the intro, I have spent almost all of my WoW time flying around honoring campfires. Be real glad when this is over. Anyway, so with that being said, then, if it does feel like, Blizzard just kind of got it ready and sent it out the door, what do you think might be the cause of that? Like, they have more team members than they've ever had before. Is stuff just taking that much longer? Like, is it maybe because they have so many people pulled off to, like, maybe work on the next patch or the next expansion? Like, there would have to be a reason if it feels half-baked.
I can't really say for sure because I don't know, because I don't work at Blizzard.
Sure.
But it's mostly the questing that does that.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of talked about that because that's my pet peeve. A lot of the other stuff feels a lot better. If you look at it from the same point of view as you would look at things like Timeless Isle, in that sense, it's pretty good. You have large areas to explore, lots of variety in enemies, tons of rares and treasures to collect, and of course, you've got new bonus objectives and missions for Apexis, which are a little more interesting than the original Apexis missions, and also much more rewarding because the numbers of crystals you get are buffed up.
Sure.
And the crystals are actually now useful for something because they can get you decent gear. So it feels more engaging to play.
And what kind of numbers are you seeing in terms of crystal drops?
From random mobs, I get Apexis crystals from almost every mob I've killed so far. The number will vary, usually anywhere from 1 to 5 for like little guys. For bigger guys, I'm not really sure.
Sure.
I haven't paid that much attention to those numbers. But
do they feel actually farmable?
They feel more farmable, especially with the missions. The ones that we were previously doing, they're similar to the ones we were previously doing, the dailies that would give you 800 or 1,000. But in this case, they give you 2,000. And there are other daily quests that sort of chain into that require you to get other things from the mobs in those same zones that also reward extra Apexis crystals. So you can actually make a decent amount of them now. It's actually worth doing the dailies now, whereas previously I would just not even go to the mission board in my garrison.
Sure. Yeah, I stopped doing it after like the first week because it wasn't worth it and it took so long, even with a group.
Yep. Well, they're quicker now. It doesn't take as long to complete them, or at least it feels that way to me. It may just be because it's new areas and new enemies.
Mm-hmm.
But they don't take as long. They're more rewarding, and the Apexis crystals you do get are actually more valuable now that you can use them to get better gear rewards.
Sure. It doesn't take like 100,000 to get a single piece of decent gear.
Exactly. So, gameplay-wise, it feels pretty good. My only concern on that front is that it feels like it might not last that long.
And that's something that we'll be talking about in just a moment. Have you done anything with the dungeon journal? Not the dungeon journal, the adventure guide. The thing that every day it tells you 3 things that would be something that would help you actually, play Warcraft instead of log in, do your garrison, log out.
Yeah, I do something with it. It pops up on my screen, and I press the little X in the corner to close it. Like, for like a really casual player, like someone who doesn't follow any WoW news and just logged in and was like, "Oh, there's a patch now," and has no idea what to do. For that, it would probably be helpful. But
Yeah,
for players who actually players who actually follow the news like you and me, it's not really got any utility.
Yeah, mine currently suggests me to do the time walking bonus event. And I can even start the quest from the little thing. Join a random battleground, or do a mythic dungeon. And I guess it's supposed to be based on like your item level, and it even checks how complete your gear and stuff is. Like it'll check how far you've done into quest lines, and it'll check what your item level is and what'll actually be a worthwhile reward for you. So like it shows me, is it actually comparing? Yeah, okay. So I have a feeling that it's actually doing this on purpose. My lowest item piece of my lowest eye level piece of gear is my belt. It's a level 1 crafted piece that I am level 640. And in the dungeon adventure guide, it's showing me a sample reward of a item level 685 belt. You could upgrade your crappy piece, but I mean, I guess if you're just wanting to play Warcraft and you're like, man, I don't know what to do. I mean, at least it might give you a little bit of a thought of what you could possibly do. But it doesn't it doesn't feel game breaking to me in any way.
Well, it seems like me a really good tool because when you get into World of Warcraft's endgame, there's really nobody who tells you where to go or what to do in the game.
Yeah, you're supposed to choose for yourself, but that's hard.
There's no quest giver that's like, you can go here and you can do dungeons, or you can go over here and do a raid, or you can farm these seals or farm this rep. No one ever actually tells you to do that. The only way you know what to do to progress in the endgame is by either learning from other players or Googling it. So this kind of fills that gap so that people are actually have some sense of what they need to do next.
Or just, something that they could do. Because it might
also definitely true.
Yeah, it might not even. It's not even necessarily a need, but at least it'll give you an idea. But I guess we'll see. If I end up using it later. But I mean, I have a feeling that if you get to the point that if you get to the point close to where I am, where like the only places that I really have quests, I think I have just a couple quests left in what is that place? Nagrand, and then I have, and I'm sitting on item level 666, so it's certainly not low. That's normal Blackrock eye level. I have a feeling that most of the time when I check this, it's going to be suggesting I won't see much variance in what it suggests to me, because it currently shows the event, Mythic Dungeon, PvP Battleground, and I have a feeling I'll be seeing something along those lines over and over and over again. Whereas maybe I'd get something different if I was like level 50. I don't know. I could go check. I have a level 56 Panda. I'll switch over to that and see real quick.
It definitely varies, because mine right now is showing Blackrock Foundry. It's specifically recommending normal difficulty, random battleground, PvP skirmishes, and then it's telling me that High Mall is a thing that exists. It doesn't even have a button to go to High Mall like it does for Blackrock Foundry. It just says, "Oh, High Mall is a thing." So yeah, it seems to vary a little from character to character.
Let me see. I think it's here. Is this my panda? Oh, she's level 53. Okay. Let me see what the adventure guide says on this panda. I need a solid state drive so this loads faster. Advances in technology. They need to get cheaper. Oh god, where am I that it's loading this slow? And dun 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 dun. Okay, what do you suggest me to do, game, on my level 53 panda? Swamp of Sorrows. The Alliance needs you to secure a steady supply of munitions from the trade baron Silversnap in the Swamp of Sorrows. You can join a group for Blackrock Depths, and it's suggesting I get into professions. Professions like alchemy and mining allow you to craft and gather useful items. Does it actually give me the quest? Oh, wow, that's cool. It'll actually give you the quest, the Hero's Call quest, to go to Swamp of Sorrows. So it can... Oh, I just completely closed out of Warcraft. Good job, me. So, I don't know. I mean, it would be helpful, especially... I think I would find it the most useful if I quit playing for several months and came back and I didn't know where to go next. Because I, hadn't been around. But I don't know. I don't know if I'll end up using that much. And then we have a pile of hotfixes. I didn't expect the patch to come in as rough as it did because there's a long list of things that were broken. And they've almost all been fixed now thanks to Blizzard having its, new hotfix technology with the new coding that Warcraft is using. But I thought that's what stuff like the PTR was for, so that they can see and check all that stuff before it goes live. It kind of goes into the reason why there's this movement of people telling you not to pre-order games because it allows the developer to ship a broken game. And this is somewhat different, but it still feels like similar enough of they shipped a broken patch. Luckily, they were able to fix it quickly, but it's still a broken patch.
Yeah, that's another thing that makes me think that maybe this was rushed out the door, half-baked. That, in addition to how weird the questing feels, just, it feels like Blizzard isn't putting their full effort behind this patch and just support for Warlords of Draenor in general after the last very lackluster 6.1 patch we had. It's almost like they're all occupied with something else.
Mm-hmm. Is that just maybe... I already asked it once, so are we just hoping that that's the next expansion? Is that what we're hoping for?
I hope it's the next expansion. We'll see. Yeah.
I mean, they did say that there was going to be some sort of extra content after this one, so that's not an expansion. I mean, I guess they have more story to tell, I believe is the verbiage that Watcher used. So, I don't know. Wait and see, I guess.
I don't know. They could be just gearing up for a huge, awesome 6.3 patch, and so it took resources away from this.
But I thought that's what this was supposed to be, and that's why 6.1 was so weak.
Yeah, and actually some of the 6.1 stuff got rolled into this because the Iron Docks questing area is the beginning of the Tanan Jungle quest line.
Right, and it
just kind of rolls right into it.
That's all I've gotten, is I got to the docks and then went, oh wait, I need to go do some bonfires.
So that's pretty much what happens. The Iron Docks quests happen, and then it just goes straight into Danan. So that 6.1 scheduled thing just kind of got rolled into this. Although there's not really that much going on at the Iron Docks, to be honest.
All right. Well, I guess we'll see.
Yeah, let's...
Sorry, what were you going to say?
No, that's okay. Go ahead.
Okay. According to many PvPers, Ashran is dead. I thought it was already dead. They removed the ability to queue into Ashran in a pre-made raid, which I guess was the only way that people were doing it anymore, of that you would jump into a pre-made group of I don't know how many was even allowed in Ashran, 20 or 30 or 40 people queue into Ashran, and then you just completely romp across the place. But now that is not an option anymore. You have to solo queue into it, and it will put you into a fully pre-made group like Random Battlegrounds, and not fully pre-made, a fully randomized group like Random Battlegrounds. But apparently this marks the end of what little life Ashran had left. I don't know what that means. Do you? I thought Ashran was kind of already a flop and had been forgotten and left behind, but apparently that's not entirely true.
Well, I know a few people were still like doing it, mostly because it was the most effective way to get to maximize your conquest. But it was really hard to get anything done PvP wise with just a random group because people would run off and do all kinds of PvP objectives instead of actually PvPing like
Sure.
you're supposed to. I mean, Ashran in general has just been it's
Awkward?
just been really bad. Yeah, I've heard somebody say, I can't remember where I read it, but someone said that Ashran was Blizzard's Google Plus, and they just hadn't realized it yet.
That
I think that's probably
that's
a
a
fair way to put
very
it.
sad but possibly accurate comparison. I mean, because
Well,
I remember a lot of people were upset about Barrett and Hold and Cataclysm, but it still did well and was very active, and I enjoyed it. I recognize the problems that people found in it, but I still thought it was fun. But this apparently is very different, and which most people don't like Ashran at all.
yeah, Ashran has a lot of design problems. Um, the biggest of which is probably the fact that it tries to cater to both PvE and PvP players, while ostensibly being like a PvP thing.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't think you can do that. I mean, it almost seems like they tried to go. I don't want to say like a MOBA type route, but you know how MOBAs very often you'll have your big team fights and then you also have like PvE type objectives
Right.
at the same time. It
Mm-hmm.
almost seems like they're kind of shooting for that and they just missed really 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 badly.
I don't know. And like Pandaria didn't really have one of these. I mean, they had the patch 6.1 with the combat stuff that was in Crossring Wilds, but I wasn't playing for that, so I don't know if that was, boom or bust. I haven't heard anything truly bad about it. I just know that it died quickly because it was technically world PvP and people get over that pretty quick. Whereas Ashran, one of the problems I think that I have with Ashran is that it feels like it was supposed to be world PvP, but it's actually instanced, and you can't just run over there the same way that you could like Winter Grasp. You could just fly into Winter Grasp and join the fight. So I think that might be one of the harder knocks against it is that because you even feel like you're supposed to just be able to run over there, but when you run over there, it's like, would you like to queue for Ashran? It's like, I guess so.
Yeah, that's definitely something that hurts it a lot. Is it would have been pretty good as a world PvP zone, I think. But yeah, I'm not sure. I'm really not sure why they decided to instance it. It didn't really seem like the kind of thing that would need instancing, to be honest.
I think they were worried about one side outbalancing the other and just it somewhat dying because one team was just always in there dominating.
Well, that's true, because I know Wintergrasp did have that issue. I played on a Horde dominant server, and the Alliance never ever won Wintergrasp, and they were not big fans of that, so they just kind of stopped showing up after a while.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know, Ashran just. It's the same thing you said before. It feels like it should be world PvP, and I'll agree with that point. Whenever I've stepped in there, it's felt like something that should be an open world zone and not an instance thing.
And it's constantly had lots of problems because, I mean, when it first came out, the queue times were like a day long because they only made it where one instance of Ashran could be operating at a time, which also didn't make any sense if it was instanced. Because it ran on a clock, kind of like Winter Grasp, except not. And then it just started being a just run down the middle lane and just see who wins.
Yeah, the whole thing is just very weirdly designed, especially considering the fact that they could have easily just made a new battleground and everyone would have been happy.
Well, they keep wanting to make world PvP a thing, but the problem is that people have kind of that's a thing that's done and past and gone now. I mean, the days of Torren Mill versus South Shore and constantly fighting at like the crossroads, that's not a thing anymore. And I feel like Blizzard, because people are like, man, yeah, that was awesome. Blizzard, I wish you could make that happen again. But the thing that people don't realize is Blizzard didn't make that happen. We did. That was a community thing that appeared and just kept going. And Blizzard can't easily cultivate that.
Yeah, that's very true. It just sort of happened on its own, and it was never really intended to be. Especially like specifically like you mentioned, Terran Mill versus South Shore. You know, when they designed those places, they weren't thinking, "Oh, there's going to be awesome battles happening here." They were like, "We just need to make this field and put some towns in it." Oh, I probably shouldn't have said that word. You can just murgle that out. That would be great.
I can do that.
Anyway, so nothing was really designed for major world PvP. It just was emergent gameplay, and emergent gameplay, gameplay leads to some of the most amazing experiences, at least that I've ever had in gaming. The problem is, it's almost impossible for game developers to control.
Yeah.
Because it just kind of happens on its own. And that's what world PvP is. It's the kind of thing you have to let happen. And if it doesn't happen, then it just doesn't happen. You can't force it. Unless your game is specifically built around conquering the world, a la something like PlanetSide, maybe.
Yeah, but in that case, then you have a game that is nothing but world PvP. So, I mean, that's what you go into that game to play. Where, I mean, sure, there might be people in Warcraft that is also one of, their ultimate goal, I guess, would be, world PvP. But I don't feel like that is even a somewhat large group of people. PvPers, yes. World PvPers, no.
Yeah. It's really hard to put PvPers and world PvPers and PvEers in the same game and make it work. It kind of worked with WoW's like original incarnation, but I don't think that magic is going to appear again, no matter how hard any developer tries to make it happen.
Yeah, I don't think so either. All right, one last news thing. Yeah, that's a good point. The future past 6.2. It's not necessarily news, it's a question that I want to ask, and you brought it up when I asked you about, how you were doing in 6.2, and it was, how long is this going to last? I mean, people right now devour content super fast. It's not like in the super early days of WoW, where it took, months upon months to get to level 60. There was endless amounts of content, simply because it took so long to level and all of that kind of different stuff. Content now is able to be absorbed so quickly. How long do you think that 6.2 is going to last? Now, Timeless Isle held up pretty well, but there was also some people that got very bored of it. Is this going to be, will Tanaan Jungle live in the same light, or is it going to be passed over quicker? Where do you think it's sitting? Obviously, we know we haven't had a whole lot of time to play with it. I haven't even stepped foot in there yet, but just off your initial impression, do you see it lasting along the lines a la Timeless Isle?
I don't think it'll last as long as Timeless Isle. Mostly because a lot of the things aren't as repeatable. When you've killed a rare one time and you've gotten your loot from him, then you're just done with that rare. There's nothing else you can really do with him.
Sure.
And that kind of hurts it a little bit. They're just, I don't know, it just feels really short. Like, for example, I haven't played, during the work week, I did not play because I was very busy doing my job that I do.
Sure.
So I didn't get to start playing until the weekend. And I've only played yesterday and a little bit of today. And I've already seen all of Tanaan Jungle. I've been through all the areas. I've done all the quests that I could actually find, although it really only feels like maybe a third of a full zone's worth of questing. And I've done all the bonus objectives. So at this point, I have seen all the content there is to see, and it's just a question of repeating stuff over and over again to get my Apexis crystals.
How much of it is actually repeatable?
I don't know what to call them. I guess bonus objectives. They work like the bonus objectives or the Apexis missions did. Or you can
Sure.
just do, you just run into an area and you can kill people, or you can click on things, or you can do this objective or that objective to fill up a little bar.
Okay.
Those you can repeat. You can also re-kill rares to gather some kind of special nuggets that you need 10 of for a daily. I think they're like Fell Corrupted Apexis Fragments or something like that. And that's pretty much it for repeatable content. That is the Tanan Jungle endgame. Of course, that sets aside and ignores Hellfire Citadel completely.
Right.
Although, as far as I can tell, Hellfire Citadel is purely just a raid. There are no quests related to it. No one ever told me to go near it or do anything with it. So, as far as I can tell, it's just a raid that happens at Tanan Jungle.
Mm-hmm.
And there's no interrelation or any repeatable quests related to it. It just feels like this is going to be a really flash in the pan sort of what's it called, patch. It doesn't feel like it's going to last very long, and players are going to be hungry for new content very, very soon.
Okay.
At least that's my analysis.
No, it seems like a fair analysis. It's just unfortunate. So what do you think will be after Tanan Jungle? Do you think we will get that island whose name I've forgotten that's up in the northeast? Do you think we'll get something completely different? Maybe the Ogre Continent, or just, some sad a Ruby Sanctum? How much do you think we'll actually get in 6.3 if we get a 6.3?
If we got a 6.3, I think it would mostly likely be Farallon, the island whose name you could not remember.
Thanks.
And I think the main reason for that is that Blizzard said early on that they did a lot of development on Farallon because it was originally supposed to be the area where boosted characters learn to play their class.
Right.
So there's going to be a lot of stuff that's already done for Farallon. So if they wanted to make a 6.3, it would make sense to go ahead and use all that work that had already been done rather than just start from scratch on something new.
Mm-hmm.
Unless they wanted 6.3 to be something like where it was maybe just a raid and a couple dailies or something like that.
I'm not sure.
With no new areas. Yeah, I'm not either. It's at this point, I'm not really sure what Blizzard is doing anymore.
Wasting a bunch of time is how it kind of feels.
Well, I don't know. We'll have to wait and see, because for all we know, they could be working on the next expansion, and then it comes out and it absolutely blows our mind, and then we're like, oh, so that's what they were doing the whole time. We just have to wait and see.
It's
hard to make a judgment. It's hard to make a judgment when we can't see what's going on behind the scenes and what Blizzard's people are actually working on.
Right. I guess we'll see. All right, let's go ahead and get into a closer look. Welcome to A Closer Look, everybody. A Closer Look is a short segment that we do in which we take a closer look at something in Warcraft. It's very rarely anything that's newsworthy. It's just something that we'd like to give a little bit more discussion to. And this week we're going to be talking about voice chat functionality. And when you think about voice chat, we are voice chatting right now, me and Florian. This is Skype. It is, a way to talk to each other across the internet. And the thing that you mostly see this for is like primary function that I see is raid coordination. So if you've ever been in an organized raid, they'll invite you to one of many different systems, and that way they can be like, yo, you use your cooldown, tank swap, kill the ads, etc. It's also used in competitive PvP. Make sure you focus the mage, focus the priest, whatever. Do you know anything else that it's used for Florian in Warcraft?
In Warcraft specifically?
Yes.
Aside from that, maybe guild business, guild communications. Guild chat isn't always the best thing to talk over.
Sure.
Especially if you're doing two things at once. It's very difficult to type and game at the same time, as I'm sure you have noticed previously, which makes voice chat a pretty much wonderful way to communicate with people, no matter what you're doing in-game.
Mm-hmm. No matter what you're doing in game. 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 No matter what you're doing in Sure. So first, let's talk about the options that we have. We have Ventrilo, and I'm fairly certain Ventrilo is the oldest, right? It's the oldest, and generally is the one that most people consider to be the best, but unfortunately is no longer free. Would you agree with this, Florian?
Yeah, Ventrilo has always been the standard, at least in WoW. In other games, it may be different, but as far back as I can remember, it's always been Ventrilo number one.
Okay. Then following that, we have TeamSpeak, which I like to describe it as Ventrilo's awkward cousin, because it's been around pretty much as long as Ventrilo, but until very recently, it was very subpar. It recently made a huge amount of increase with TeamSpeak 3. Again, though, it's also not following the free model, but it is cheaper than Vent, and it is now just reliable. And this is one I see most people have switched to is TeamSpeak, just because Ventrilo has gotten quite greedy. For whatever reason.
Yeah, I haven't used it in a while, so I can't really say for sure what people are using now. The thing I've heard a lot of people talking about now is Mumble, though, which is a new player that's started to come up in the voice chat world. And I really don't know that much about it at this point, but it just seems to be like a straight competitor to those two.
What I can tell you, Mumble, it is essentially right now it is the free option. You can buy service from Mumble, but it is not required. They have free servers, and the thing that is limiting on the free to non-free is how many people you can have in a server at a time. So like Mumble, their free servers allow up to like 40 people, which essentially means if you're doing anything Warcraft related, it's free. Whereas like Vent and TeamSpeak now, they're like 5 tops if it's free, 10 sometimes. I forget which one is the other. I think Vent is only 5, TeamSpeak allows 10, which is not enough if you're running, a 20-man raid for Mythic or a 25-man or a 30-man raid. The problem that I see most often with Mumble is that people often have issues with it. Since it's almost a type of freeware, it's not, but it's very close. A lot of people have issues with it sucking too much juice from their computer. It crashes, or it causes performance issues like it's Warcraft. It's the heaviest one, where TeamSpeak and Ventrilo stay very light. Why there's that difference, I don't know. The programs all seem very simple, but Mumble is the one that is the free option, but it is also generally the strenuous option. At least that's the difference that I have seen.
Yeah, that makes sense. I've also heard, once again, can't verify that Mumble has better voice quality than TeamSpeak or Vent. It's something I've heard many different times, so there must be some substance behind it.
I'm not sure.
No knowledge? Okay. Yeah, I don't use Mumble, in case you haven't guessed.
Sure. What is your preference?
I've always used Ventrilo. It served me faithfully for many, many years.
Sure.
And, there's no reason to fix what ain't broken.
Right. And then, of course, your other option is Skype. But Skype is really heavy on system performance because it has so many other features, so it draws pretty heavily on the system. So a lot of people don't always want to use it because, well, they might not have a powerful enough computer, or they're just trying to, optimize. Now, the other problem is that it's not really great for large groups. I don't know if there is a group limit on how big you can have a call in Skype. Personally, the biggest one I've ever been in is like 6 or 7. I don't know if you can get up to 20, 25, but in terms of how much that Skype draws off of your computer with it, I couldn't imagine what a 25-man call would do on your computer if you were to run it through Skype.
Yeah, probably not be a good thing to do in conjunction with gaming in any case.
Yeah. And I don't know when this was implemented, but Blizzard has its own voice chat functionality. It is still available to turn on in the options. Do you know when that came into reality, Florian?
Oh, a long, long time ago. I remember when it first came out, I was super hyped, and it was only being tested on a few servers to begin with. So I created a new character on one of those realms, as did a lot of people, just to chat with each other and try out the chat, uh, which, by the way, was very disappointing. Um, I would say it was a minor patch, but I want to think it was after 2.0, so probably in the Burning Crusade era.
Sure, I don't know.
Can't verify that.
It was in when I started in the middle of Wrath, and it was bad then, and it's bad now.
Yeah, it's always been bad. The only time I've ever seen it used was in one role playing guild that I was in for a while that insisted on using it instead of TeamSpeak Ventrilo.
Sure.
And it's if you haven't used it, it's terrible. The voice quality's poor. It doesn't work very well. And if two people, God forbid, two people try to speak at the same time, it's a completely garbled mess. It's impossible to understand everybody. You basically have to use radio etiquette because only one person can talk at a time.
Yeah, which people are really bad at.
Yeah, in general.
So has Blizzard just been choosing to just kind of lean on these third-party programs instead of trying to do anything themselves?
That's what I would say they're doing. The main reason being Blizzard's products have a reputation for being easy for people to play, not only in terms of game design, but in terms of they're easy to install. They don't tend to have a lot of bugs or problems, and they also tend to be very light in system performance. Especially WoW. You know, you could run WoW probably on a toaster, and it would work fine.
Well, people are reporting that that's not the case anymore. I mean, with the updated, you even turned all the way down, the system requirements for WoW have still gone up. So you might need like a blender instead of a toaster now.
Yeah, but still, it's I can run WoW on a netbook and have no problems.
Right.
So, you know, there's no real concern about it. And part of the reason it's so easy to run is because it requires very little resources. It's both memory resources, processor resources, and internet connection bandwidth. The thing is, voice chat requires far more bandwidth than just the data that WoW uses. And if they implement voice chat and make it standard where everyone is using it, that's going to significantly increase the bandwidth footprint of that you get when you play WoW. And by leaving it optional, by leaving the voice chat optional and making it an outside thing, they can keep a very small bandwidth footprint and make it easy for people to play even when they have slow connections.
Sure. So, what are we looking at in terms of the future? Are we just gonna stay with, you know, whatever third party program you want to use? Otherwise, could we maybe look at if they did improve the voice chat for the internal one that is through the client? Could you maybe see something like an open mic system, like a la Call of Duty, where, I mean, yes, you know, we'll probably hear about the guy who slept with our mother, but the thing that I see in this is that if, obviously people might not always use it, you can just turn it off, but if you did have this just constant open mic thing, and like if you get into a 5-man dungeon, and just that 5-man dungeon immediately, it also sticks you into like this 5-man voice chat group that's inside the client, that could improve the social silence that exists in Warcraft. People will complain and talk about how no one talks anymore. You know, I queue into a dungeon and we just run through the dungeon without saying a single word. Could things like this benefit that, or would it just lead to more conflict and people flaming each other over, you know, I don't know, going after the quest item instead of killing the boss?
Well, that's always been something that's had very divisive opinions from people. I'm of the opinion that having open voice chat would be a boon to WoW and to just games in general. It's always better to have people communicating than to have them standing right next to each other in complete silence and ignoring one another's existence. So, yes, of course, there's going to be problems. There's going to be some guy who just runs around screaming dicks, 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 dicks over and over again. But on the other hand, you have to consider the fact that there's going to be a lot of constructive discussion, good social discussions. I mean, I feel like it would help the community a lot more than it would hurt it, to be honest.
Sure. I can hope. I mean, is that something that you would want to see?
Yeah, I'd be super into that. I think that would be great. It would start to bring the socialization back into WoW when everyone is actually talking to each other, or is able to talk to each other without just, I don't know. The text chat just feels, how should I put this, a lot more impersonal than actually speaking to someone with voice, and it's a lot easier to just ignore or just not even bother starting a conversation with someone.
Sure. Do you see any other system idea that you would like to see in terms of voice chat for Warcraft?
I would like to see it also baked into the game so that, Vent and TeamSpeak can go their own way. I understand why Blizzard doesn't do that, because like I said, it just increases the system requirements for the game, and also that's not Blizzard's area of expertise.
Sure.
They're not super good at doing audio codecs and that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So I can understand why they wouldn't do it, but it would just be a very nice feature to have, to not have to use Vent or anything like that anymore, and Alt-Tab out whenever I want to join someone's raid because I have to join their Vent server. Instead, I can just click join raid, and be right there in the voice chat.
Well, sure, and if you're not actively raiding, I constantly find that, it's like, oh, jump into this Vent thing, and it's like, your Vent's out of date, you can't join that. I'm like, okay, hang on, guys, I have to go download the new one, and then you have to waste all this time doing that. Or, I'll upgrade my system, or, format my computer or something like that, and then they're like, yeah, just jump in TeamSpeak, and I'm like, oh, wait, don't have TeamSpeak. Give me, 10 minutes to go download that and get it set up, and then I can jump in there, and it just eats up a bunch of time.
Mm-hmm. It's definitely problematic, and it's something I would like to see fixed. Just a question of whether or not Blizzard's willing to do it, and I would say probably not.
Too busy wasting time on other things, right?
Yeah, they gotta get 6.3 maybe ready?
Maybe.
Possibly?
I don't know. I would like to hear or see something, but, I haven't got to see 6.2 yet, so... once I am able to get to it, let's see if I share your opinion in terms of its longevity. Let's go and get into the mailbag. Welcome, everybody, to the mailbag. You can send your emails to thecastbar@gmail.com. Follow us and send us tweets on Twitter at Castbar Podcast. Call and leave us a voicemail at 508-738-2278. Or you can call and leave us leave us feedback or questions at our website, which is www.thecastbar.com. We have a single email this week. It says, hey guys, fartex, or tex if you... it would be inappropriate for the show. I don't think the word fart is too bad, considering Florian just got done going dicks. Here from Bronze Dragonfly EU. First of all, I want to thank you guys for doing this podcast. It is very informative. Just taking a look at the other full game podcasts, lengthwise, I would not like it to be changed, as the length of your shows covers my daily drive towards or from work, so keep them coming. Also, it was nice to actually hear Florian speak more than just 2 words in a show while Evan was gone. Haha. In show 31, I was like, whoa, Florian speaks more than 5 lines. Florian, this means no disrespect intended at all. See, people like when you talk. I understand, though, that me and Evan get very carried away with tangents and conversations. The reviews of the dungeons sometimes bring back memories and nostalgia feelings. They are in-depth and straight to the point. I don't know if you guys have reviewed Botanica yet. I might have missed it if you did, but I hated that one with a passion. Then he goes on to talk about some shoulders from Botanica that he had spent a long time trying to get. I was happy to actually see the plate shoulders drop on our first kill, and then he went back to Botanica and got his shoulders that he'd been looking for the entire time. Anyway, really love the show, and I hope you guys will go on for many, many years. Best regards, Fartex, a.k.a. Mr. Tex, a.k.a. Stinky. Well, thank you, Stinky. You make me think of my uncle. My uncle loved to call little kids Stinky. He's not real big on kids, by the way. Come here, Stinky. Random memories from my childhood. But thank you for your kind words. And no, we have not reviewed Botanica. We are actually going to be staying away from 5-man dungeons in terms of review for a little while. We went on a big kick there, trying to get the Hellfire Citadel dungeons reviewed before Hellfire itself launched. So we can consider Botanica in the future, but right now we're going to pick a couple other directions for the time being. What do you think, Florian? You got anything to say to Stinky?
Yes, you have a very interesting collection of handles. And I'm glad you like to hear me talk. You'll probably be hearing more of that in the future, now that I've sort of gotten the wheels greased a little bit.
And your internet connection isn't, depressing.
That helps just an unbelievable amount. You would not believe.
Well, on that internet connection, were we coming through clearly to you, or was it poor on that side as well?
It was both. I mean, you guys sounded better than I did probably because my download was a lot better than my upload.
Sure.
But, it was not uncommon for you guys to sound a little bit like robots.
Sure.
Yeah.
It's almost a shame that Evan isn't here, though, because his Death Knight he plays as a Torn, his name is Stinkhorn. I imagine he gets called Stinky from time to time. Or at least Stink.
Well, it's better than Horny, so...
Yes, it is that is true. I can agree with that completely. I would not...
That's the alternative.
I would... Oh, God.
Yeah, he's got a very interesting name. It's got to be weird to figure out how to address him.
I'll just call him Evan.
Yeah, that works for us.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
I don't have to concern myself with that.
Play well with him.
All right, let's go ahead and get into the review. Welcome to the review, everybody. As I said in the mailbag, we are avoiding 5-man dungeons for just a little while. So this week, we will be reviewing Stormwind, which is convenient since Evan's not here, since he's a Horde player. He probably doesn't have much to say besides burn it to the ground. Which... I'll talk about burning it to the ground in just a minute. We split the review section into 3 parts: ambience, gameplay, and lore. Normally, each of us kind of leads off one of those sections, but since it's just me and Florian this week, we're just gonna go at it like we did the last couple of weeks. Ambience is the sound, the look, the feel, and everything. It's just the immersion of being there. Gameplay is the quest, the mobs, and all of that goodness. Normally, if it was a dungeon, you'd have bosses and stuff. Obviously, a zone or a city might not always have that. And the lore is the story that's involved. So first, we're going to be talking about the ambience. Now, Florian, I have always been impressed with the ambience of Stormwind. It's always been one of the biggest, most grandiose cities in Warcraft. That being said, though, it almost feels like... I can't imagine what Stormwind would be like in terms of lore, because, it's like 100,000 people live there. But Stormwind, and this is going to be something that I think we'll talk about through almost all of the sections outside of lore, is that Stormwind feels a little bit too big, because it's real spread out, it's real awkward to get around if you can't fly, which we didn't be able to use to until Cataclysm. And there's just so much just extra there, which is really neat on one hand, because it lends itself a little bit more life, but at the same time, it makes it just feel very awkward. What do you think?
I would agree with that. It does take a while to get to anywhere you're going in Stormwind, unless where you're going happens to be right by the front door. At least the bank and the auction house are really well situated near the front door and the sort of center of the city. But as for everything else, it can get really confusing. I specifically have trouble finding profession trainers and remembering where they are, simply because there's so much, how should I put it, urban sprawl, I guess would be a good term for it.
Sure.
Sounds good to me. And there's a lot of that going on in Stormwind. It's good because it makes the city feel really, really big, but it can make it a little inconvenient in terms of finding the things you need to find.
Well, and quest markers don't really help in things like Stormwind because the quest markers on your map are always so big, unless you make this mini map bigger. But like if you just press M and look at the map of Stormwind, it's like it's over here, and you're like, that's very general. It's one of these 8 buildings. Congratulations.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I do understand it needs to be big, and it certainly is. It's a very wonderful, huge city that makes an excellent first impression, especially. I know my mind was kind of blown when I walked into Stormwind for the first time back in Vanilla. I was expecting some kind of dinky little town pretending to be a city, and I got something a lot bigger than that. But yeah, it definitely does a good job of being big and being very. It's got this very shiny, clean, very alliance-y look.
Mm-hmm.
If that makes any sense.
Yeah, it does.
As opposed to Orgrimmar, where you've got spikes everywhere. There are no solid buildings. Everything's a tent. And this is very different. This is very much the core of what an alliance city should look like, I think.
Mm-hmm. Sure, yeah. And it's for alliance people, I mean, you'll generally see, if you're a Draenei, then you'll see Exodar, or if you're a Night Elf, you'll see the Darnassus, but the true pinnacle of the alliance has always been Stormwind, and it just shines because it's real bright. Everything is real that whitewashed stone. It's real gorgeous place. Aside from, and this is what I was going to touch on, is that aside from the fact that 5 years ago it got blown up by Deathwing, which, rude Deathwing, you couldn't go throw a fireball at Orgrimmar 2. Which, I mean, it did get, burnt a little bit or something, but Orgrimmar has since been redone. But the only thing that's changed in Stormwind is that they put the statue back up and fixed Deathwing's claws on the front what are those things called? Parapets. There we go. But the park is still completely destroyed, and we thought we were going to get it rebuilt in Warlords, and they told us they were, and it hasn't been. Because rude Blizzard is rude. Do you want the park rebuilt?
I think it would make sense for the park to be rebuilt. You don't want to leave it all destroyed. That doesn't make sense, at least in a lore context.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would definitely say that probably should have been fixed by this time, and it's very weird that it hasn't been. And it kind of sort of lends itself to that sort of weird feeling of mixed timelines that WoW always has, where you're in this time, but you're also in this time, and you're playing through quests that technically happened before the current time and all that.
Mm-hmm. So, nothing actually makes sense.
Yeah, so that the park, I just look at the park as part of that, it's just sort of in its own temporal plane of existence right now.
That annoys me.
I'll agree with you on that. I would like to see it fixed. I would like to see it improved. There are parts of the stuff resulting from Deathwing's attack that are actually still on fire.
Right.
I'm actually looking at some of that fire now, 5 years, that's a long time for a fire to burn, Somebody should really put that out. It's a safety hazard.
So, a little bit of a tangent here then. Do you think that'll ever get fixed? The whole thing of, there's, when the Cataclysm happened, there's still places that are on fire, there's still places that have tornadoes and stuff going all over the place. Do we ever have a hope of seeing things like that be corrected?
Probably not, because it would require more effort than it's actually worth. especially when you've got a player base that's constantly clamoring for new content. It's worth the time more to produce new content than it is to fix inconsistencies with old content, I think.
Blarg. Okay. And another thing on the ambience, besides, this, it's neat because it's one of the few cities that they do actually have some buildings that are there for no reason than to just be extra buildings. With that being said, though, I don't know where I was going with that. It's gone now. It completely left my brain. The only other thing that I had to say on ambience after whatever that thought was supposed to be is that Stormwind has this really big, powerful trumpet music. It's that kingdom music of, check out this awesome empire. I mean, it's kind of like what you see when, like, they show you, what is that white, it's always the white city in, Lord of the Rings. It's not Gondor, is it? I thought Gondor's the Plains city? I don't remember anymore. I haven't seen that movie in too long.
I have no idea.
I don't know either. Darn it, now I have to look it up. White City, Lord of the Rings. It is called Minas Tirith. That's it. The giant city that's outside of Mordor is Minas Tirith. Like, every time, like, when you show that city, it's the big, raging trumpets, this is the bastion, and that's kind of what Stormwind is meant to be. Even though, and we'll get into lore, that it's not really that much of a bastion. What would you like to grade Stormwind for ambience, Florian?
For ambience, I think the ambience is excellent. It's looked great. It's always looked great. It feels great. It's always felt great. Like I said, it's a bit confusing, but that's more of a gameplay thing, so I'm not going to hold that against it on ambience. I'm going to say the ambience is an A. No, you know what? A+.
And it gets the same from me as well. There's very few faults that Stormwind has. I'm holding it against Blizzard that the park is still blown up, not against Stormwind. It's not Stormwind's fault. It should be fixed, and Blizzard, fix it. I would, if that's something that, I realize that is an old cosmetic thing and it doesn't truly affect anything, but if that doesn't get fixed at least by the next expansion, I feel I'll just be like, Blizzard, what are you doing? Like, you're just, it goes into that thing that we talked about multiple times over the past of, they make promises that they end up not keeping, and then everyone gets real upset about it.
Yeah, well, they did say they were going to fix it, so that's probably a good point.
So, we'll see. I don't know. But, so let's go ahead and go into gameplay. Gameplay, there's not much of it for Stormwind, really. Stormwind is the place that you go to be sent somewhere else. There's like 3 Durl quests that happen in Stormwind. You go to Stormwind for, your bank, your auction house, to start holiday events and to start the next expansion normally is generally what Stormwind is there for. Is there really anything else that I'm aware of? That I'm not aware of?
You seem like you've pretty much hit it all. And that's cities in general, like, and that's really just the result of how Blizzard chooses to design it. That they really just use cities as hubs to get to places, and places where you got a collection of services like your auction house and your bank. They don't really use them as questing areas, which I think would be interesting and cool. But that's their call to make. That's all Stormwind does, as far as I know.
Yeah, the most quests I can think of for Stormwind is like when you start Cataclysm, you fly around. Wait, is it Cataclysm? I think it's Cataclysm. No, it's when you're starting the Twilight. What is that zone called? The something Highlands. Is it called Twilight Highlands? Yeah, the Twilight Highlands. You like fly around with Anduin and stuff the city just a little bit. And that's when you find out the Twilight Hammer Clan. When you start as a human, you have a quest to go, like, buy some bread from a dude in Stormwind and deliver a package. Other than that, it's like, go talk to the king, because the king is going to send you somewhere else. I can't think of anything outside of that, though.
That's pretty much it.
That being said, though,
Unfortunately,
Stormwind does have a 5-man dungeon. It has the stockades.
that is true. Very few cities can say they have a dungeon inside. So yeah, it does have the stockades, which is also sort of the dark underbelly of Stormwind. Because if you go in there, you know it's not a very nice place. Very cramped, very prisony. Lots of nice torture equipment.
Well, and there's supposed to be. There was originally, from the very beginning, supposed to be something past that. There was supposed to be what am I trying to think of right now? There was going to be a raid that was going to be in Stormwind, and words and stuff and things, but it got scrapped. There's still a raid entrance that you can find. It has the big swirly green thing, and it was going to be like some dark thing, kind of like stockades, but it was underneath Stormwind, and I forget what the whole premise was because it didn't get very far in terms of development, but that would have been even cooler to have a raid in Stormwind, but I think they decided not to do it because it would have been too hard for Horde people to get into.
Yeah, that would have been very, very problematic, I think. It could have been very interesting, though. Sort of I guess a preemptive alliance siege of Orgrimmar.
Mm-hmm.
Something like that, maybe. It would be interesting to see. It would be cool to see more dungeons that start in major capital cities. I understand why they don't have it because, like I said, it's very inconvenient for the other faction.
Mm-hmm.
But it does lend itself to some really interesting, cool stuff.
And something that you touched on with the scrambled up mess that Stormwind kind of is. And it's cool if you're just like exploring, but like you said with the profession trainers, like the mining trainer is literally some random dwarf that is hidden away in a random house in Old Town. And if you don't know where he is, even if you ask a guard, it is not overwhelmingly obvious where that room is.
Yeah, I will have to say this about Stormwind. It is, in terms of being convenient for players, it's very poorly laid out. Now, lore-wise, it makes sense because this is how cities happen. They just kind of evolve over time, and districts just kind of sort of come together. It's very rarely planned out with some overarching master plan.
Right.
So it does make sense. It's just gameplay-wise, it doesn't play out very well. It's just very awkward trying to figure out where you need to go for any particular thing.
But, maybe that's the reason that Blizzard keeps content out of Stormwind and instead lets it be a hangout. Well, it is a very popular hangout, especially in RP places, because there's so many places and so many little bars that have no importance whatsoever to anything at all that you are able to take over, essentially, if you want to be an RP guild that is like, no, this is our bar. What are you doing in here? Like the Blue Recluse is a very, very popular RP spot. And there's many, many more on top of that in terms of places you can go and things you can do. They're just not very actually relevant to the game. People make them relevant.
Yeah, that's one of the very positive things about Stormwind is the fact that there are a lot of places to RP and it's very heavily used for RP. I would say it's probably right up there with Silvermoon for pretty much top cities where RP happens all the time.
And easy to find RP. There's some cities where RP happens, but you either don't go there or don't know that you should go there.
Very true, very true. And here you can just find it just around in the streets and the buildings. You don't have to actively seek it out. That's a very nice touch. It's very amusing to just be going about your own business and have people RPing. It makes the world feel a little more alive.
So, what would you like to grade the gameplay for this thing, Stormwind?
There's not that much gameplay, but for what it is, I'm going to say a B. It works very well for what it's supposed to be. Like I said, my only real gripe is the fact that things can be a little hard to find, but that does make sense from a lore perspective, so I can't judge that too harshly.
Sure. Okay, so you said it a B?
Yep.
And I think the biggest problem I have with gameplay for Stormwind is that there's just not really any of it there. But that's not exactly a strike, but it's not really a bonus either. I'm just gonna give it a C because that's nice and average. It's right in the middle. Just because I don't have a whole lot of feelings on the gameplay for Stormwind. But it's there. And now let's go ahead and go into lore. And Florian, would you like to give us some lore? Throw it at us.
Some lore. To be perfectly fair, I'm not even really sure where to start with Stormwind.
I think the best place to start is Warcraft 1, where it was, I don't remember the name of the war chief, but the dude who is, because that original game, it was Stormwind with King Lane and the orc guy. And you start as the orcs, come and kill King Lane, and then the humans push back the orcs.
Yeah.
I think that's the earliest of Stormwind that we have.
I believe it is. I think it may not have been called Stormwind at that point either. I want to believe it had a slightly different name, and it became Stormwind later.
Maybe?
Because I do remember seeing a map that had a name that wasn't quite Stormwind. It was very close, but not quite. I want to think. I wish I had pulled this up beforehand so that I would have it ready. But yeah, Stormwind from the very beginning was one of the human kingdoms, and right from the start, they were all up in the fight against the Horde. They were originally not a major human kingdom. The big one was always Lordaeron. And Stormwind was kind of like the second banana, I guess,
sure.
With Gilneas. They were just kind of,
there.
Yeah, basically. Lordaeron was the big one, and was also sort of the spearhead of the Alliance. They kind of ran things. They gathered the whole Alliance together back in the day and all that. And Stormwind was kind of a second banana until Lordaeron kind of had a bad time. And after Lordaeron went belly up, Stormwind became the dominant human capital. And since the humans pretty much formed the core of the Alliance, apparently, it became the Alliance capital. And that's how it became what it is now. At least that's the major overarching lore. Now, as for actual things that have happened in Stormwind or around Stormwind, there are so many plot lines that it would just take a long time to talk about.
Yeah, I mean...
It was the same thing with Orgrimmar.
Yeah.
And with Orgrimmar, it's actually easier because it's a younger city, and even so, it ties into so much that you can't really, even if we had like a 5-hour podcast, we probably couldn't cover all the lore.
Right. I mean, in Orgrimmar, it started at the end of Warcraft 3, with
exactly.
Thrall trying to find a new place for his people. But Stormwind, do we even know when Stormwind was founded? It's old as bejeez.
I know that it predates the First War, but that's really the extent of my knowledge. Apparently it was founded 1,200 years before the First War, if WoW Wiki is to be believed.
So it's just old as F, is what you're trying to say.
It's just really old, whereas Orgrimmar's kind of a new kid on the block.
Yeah, Orgrimmar's technically only... 10, 15 years old?
Yeah, something like that.
It's around there. It's not
a very old city at all.
So, man, it's interesting that Blizzard tries to actually keep continuity in the timeline, even in comparison to real time. WoW is 10 years old, and in terms of the timeline, 10 years have passed in Azeroth. So, I mean, and you kind of get to see that with Anduin getting older and stuff, which I guess this is close to being Stormwind lore. It's just neat that it's one of the few things that makes Warcraft the little gem that it is, because it does do things like that of, this game has been around for 10 years, and you know how much time has passed in the game? 10 years. So, is there really anything else that, I mean, like you said, we could delve into, because Stormwind has been an involvement with almost every expansion in some way or another. And it's normally the place that gets targeted for destruction every time. I don't know why no one ever wants to blow up Orgrimmar. But, well, besides, us, but that's an entirely different story. So, is there really anything else to the city besides, old humans and gets attacked a lot?
Um, There aren't really any other major things I can say about it. Because to be fair, a lot of things just aren't known about Stormwind, or just not important to the plot. Let's
I'm sure it
see.
has a long history as a city, but to us as players, it's kind of lost. I mean, they might have, well, in, 1217, Stormwind let women vote. I don't know. Sounds irrelevant, though. Well, it's not irrelevant. That's, I don't want people to think bad things, but at the same time, that's not something that the game is, like, overwhelmingly concerned with passing on to you. Or is it? Is that something that we would like to see more of? Random gobbledygook about things that aren't really gameplay intensive.
It might be nice because it would be, it would add a little flavor to the game, but I don't know if that's worth the effort from Blizzard.
Sure. We can hope, though, right?
We can.
We like more content, even if it's just, silly God knows what. So what then, Florian, are you grading the lore for Stormwind?
It's so hard to grade the lore because there's so much stuff going on. I'm just going to say a flat B because it's not going to upset anyone. And it's yeah. I mean, there have been good stories coming out of here. There have been terrible stories. It's just been kind of in the middle.
Sure.
And it's tied into too much. Stormwind's tied into too much stuff to really grade it properly. To be honest.
Do you think you think that's true?
That is my opinion.
Okay. I will probably be sitting about the same place I was previously with like a C. Like the problem is that Stormwind it's not that it is bad. I just feel like Stormwind is always like it's almost like Stormwind is always the butt of the joke. If that makes sense. Like, it's not really its own thing. It's just the thing that is either the start of the story or it's never the focus. It's just the place. It's just the place where you go to get more story to do other things in better places.
That makes sense. It's very true. Things, especially quests and such, very rarely happen in Stormwind or are about Stormwind. It's not something I really thought about, but yeah.
So I'm just thinking of it a C. So let's see. I'm not sure the best way to. I keep trying to figure out a better way to average it when it's just you and me. So let's see here. If we give everything a 1 through, like if we do numbers instead and say an F is a 1 and an A plus is a 10. Where's my calculator app? So we have, I'm just going to do a full on general average. 10 plus 10. A C should be at a 5 and a B would be a what, like a 7 or an 8? I'll make it a 7. And then we have another 5 and another 7. And then divide that by 6. No, that doesn't make sense still.
Oh, man, why you got to do all this math?
I don't know.
Everything complicated.
Well,
it doesn't need to be complicated.
I like to complicate things. So we have an A plus, like a B minus, and another B minus. So it's like an A minus. That sound about right?
Yeah, I will agree with an A minus.
Okay. Don't mind me, I'm just retarded. That should have worked out better than it did. I don't understand. I don't know. Anyway, I won't try and do math on Sunday. or any day for that matter. I love Stormwind. I mean, it's probably like I loved Cataclysm when we were just hanging out in Stormwind all the time. It's an awesome city. There's tons of stuff there. Do you have anything else that you'd like to add on to that, Florian?
Nothing really.
Okay.
Stormwind just is what it is.
Which is awesome, right?
It's okay, I guess.
All right. We'll have to ask Evan what he thinks. I'm pretty sure his opinion will be something along the lines of just burn it to the ground. Dirty, dirty Horde players. Thank you for listening to me stumble over words and babble, and Florian have, calm, collected, and formulated opinions instead of me just, throwing whatever happens to appear in my brain and letting it just completely fall apart. If you would like to leave us feedback and, tell us how good or bad we are, or leave us questions or anything you'd like us to read on the show, please send us an email at thecastbar@gmail.com. Call and leave us a tweet at Castbar Podcast. You can call and leave us a voicemail at 508-738-2278. You can also leave us feedback and questions on our website at www.thecastbar.com. You can find all of our old shows on iTunes, Stitcher, YouTube, and our website. I have to give some credit away, and that is to Kevin MacLeod. He does the music for our bumpers. You can find all of his work at Incomtech.com, licensed under the Creative Commons Attribution 3.0. If you'd like to get a hold of me, I would advise probably best would be my Twitter. And I talk about more than Warcraft on there, just letting you know. I talk about Magic the Gathering, I talk about Warcraft, I talk about all of the other Blizzard games, I talk about stupid stuff at work. Evan, he is not here. He is also quite active on Twitter, and in that he is at EDCWow. Florian, where would you like people to contact you at?
You will not contact me on Twitter because I don't really tweet on the Twitter. If you really want to add me on Twitter, you can just pull up an old show and find my Twitter. What I want you to do is to write to the Castbar because we need more mail. We had mail today, and that was great, and I loved it. Maybe if you guys would send more mail, Evan would come back. Should think about that.
And for anyone curious, he did not actually say he's not coming back because of bail. Official report is his car is broken.
Yeah, he also didn't say he wasn't not coming back.
Oh man, conspiracy theory all the way.
We don't know. Well,
yeah, you guys talked on the side and set this whole thing up.
Maybe. You'll never know.
You're right, I will never know. But for now, I'll just wait until next week and hope he's here next week. Alright, Florian, you have a good night. Listeners, thank you. You guys have a good night, and we will see you next week.
You are out of time.
And I will murgle out your F-bomb.
Well, if it makes you feel better about things. I don't really care. It doesn't bother me. But,
well, we still want to retain that clean rating.
Yeah, we want to try to maybe shoot for that T rating that WoW has, so we can target the same market.
But, I'm amazed that it maintains that T rating, since it's, you have Garrosh calling Sylvanas a bitch, and there's tons of murder and wanton destruction in it. If it was if it wasn't such a cartoony graphics game, I don't know if it'd be able to retain that T rating, but because it has this, cartoony stylized look to it, I have a feeling that's the only reason that it's actually able to maintain that, because it's progressively gotten darker and just more brutish.
That's true. I think maybe it's also probably because of, because of the way ratings work, there are certain things that just set people off. Like, for example, if Garrosh decided to drop an F-bomb, or if they showed some boobs, it would instantly become M, no matter what else the rest of the content was. And they carefully avoid those sorts of things.
Yeah, but at the same time, the game also has, implications, of molestation and stuff in it, which is, a pretty sensitive topic.
Well, it has genocide in it. Not implications of genocide, just straight up genocide.
Yeah.
Which I think is a little bit worse than molestation.
I don't know. Forced impregnation. It was a dragon. It was Alexstrasza, but that's still, bad.
It's still messed up, but Who knows? Maybe the people who hand out the ratings don't read the quest text. It would not surprise me.
Yeah, it looks childish, T.
It's like nobody reads the quest text,
Yeah, no.
including the people whose job it is to read the quest text.
Right. One last question. What do you think we don't have one yet. Do you think the Warcraft movie will pull off PG-13 or is it going to be R?
It'll almost certainly be PG-13 just to increase the audience.
Sure.
Simply because having an R rating just hurts your reach so much.
Yeah.
Even though if they went like for a hard R, they could make a really awesome Warcraft movie. But
they won't do that.
I don't know. I'm not worried about it. I'm still just assuming that Hollywood is going to completely screw it up and make it into an abomination that barely looks like Warcraft.
So you mean how people feel about Square Enix and the Final Fantasy VII remake?
Oh god, don't even remind me of that. It's like I was so excited when I first heard it. I was just super pumped, and then it slowly dawned on me that Square Enix, as it is now, is remaking Final Fantasy VII.
That it's Square Enix and not SquareSoft?
Yeah, if they could just just kind of throw Enix to the curb, like just Enix comes home, all Enix's shit's just out in the front yard. Just it's over. That would be great. But no.
And have you heard any of the stuff following that? Because Hamura has been showing up on a couple little no, not Hamura, Nomura. He's been showing up on saying what little he can, and people. People everywhere are like, don't do this, don't do this. And he's like, well, we're going to change this. And everyone's like, fireballs. And he's like, but we're going to keep this. Yeah, we love you. But we're going to change this. Die in a fire. And it's like, no matter what, I don't think they can win. I'm pretty sure they just lose. Like, they will win, that they're going to make lots of money. But I'm pretty sure no matter what they do, they're going to lose in the fans' eyes.
They definitely will. I mean, because the thing is, like, if they leave it exactly the same as it is now and just update it with, like, awesome HD graphics, then everyone's going to get mad because they didn't change anything or innovate. And if they actually change things, then everyone's going to be mad because they didn't leave it well enough alone. So, like, somebody's going to be unhappy.
Damned if you do, damned if you don't.
Exactly. That's the thing. Like, when you build too much hype and too much nostalgia, you're pretty much doomed.
Well, they kind of cut off their own foot by being cock teases for like 5 years. Like, who in their right mind thought it was a good idea to do the tech demo of Final Fantasy VII's intro? Like, that right there was already setting yourself up for an expectation. And then last year, when they had the president of Square Enix announce the PS4 port, it was like, okay, you are literally just shooting yourself in the dick.
Yeah.
Like,
I'm starting to wonder if, like, people at Square Enix are just kind of trolling us. Especially Nomura, of all people. I think Nomura is just, like, having a laugh every time he does something.
Well, the other thing is with Nomura is now he announced that Final Fantasy VII Remake is going to be his last project with Square Enix and with the Final Fantasy VII franchise. And there are mixed feelings on that because some people are like, his vision has become warped over the years and he's just kind of turned the Final Fantasy franchise into his own playground. And then there's other people that are just worried that Final Fantasy franchise will just be completely nowhere near what it should anymore after he leaves.
Honestly, I think Nomura I don't want to say he's past his prime.
I think the series really has outgrown him.
Yeah, that's probably what it is. Because, like, he was really good for a while, but especially with 13 and its sequels, you could see that Nomura was starting to kind of, well, not starting. He definitely just run out of ideas, pretty much.
Maybe that's why he's doing the remake. He's like, guys, I got nothing. I have to do the remake. Why? I can't think of anything new.
If he's doing that, then good on him for at least being honest and realizing,
And that's also why it's his last project, because he's like, I got nothing.
Yeah. I'd heard they actually took him off of 15.
They did.
For that exact reason, they thought it was pretty much out of good ideas after the abomination that 13 became. So. We'll see how 15 turns out without him. I have high hopes. I'd like to see some new blood come in and inject some new ideas into the series.
Yeah, it needs a little bit of revitalization. Like 13 was trying to do some good things, but it did bad things that people noticed more than the good things, which I think is unfortunate because it definitely had some good points. But the problem is that its faults outshone the cons outweighed the benefits, I guess is the best way to try and translate what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Like it did some things pretty well. It did some things right. But,
that being said, I finished 13. I thought the story was pretty good. The combat system was pretty good. Just the progression through the story and combat to combat was bad. And the whole thing about if your lead character dies, you lose the fight is completely terrible. I've started 13.2 a couple of weeks ago, and they have changed all of those problems. And 13.2 feels amazing when you just get done playing 13. Because, like, I'd almost finished 13 when it came out, and then I quit because, well, the same reason a lot of other people quit. And then I decided that, you know what, I should finish it because my taste in games have changed a lot. And especially from, like, doing this show, I was already a judgmental person, but now that we are constantly, you know, picking apart news and reviewing this and doing closer looks on that, I've gotten even more judgmental. And so, like, if you would have had me play the original Dragon Age Origins 2 years ago, I probably would have been as psyched as everyone else was, 6 years ago when it came out. I played it like 3 months ago and was just completely unimpressed. And I was like, this game has so many problems. And, my friends who played it, way back when and can play it now, they're like, no, it's amazing for all of this thing. And I was like, yeah, but it has all of these issues. And
yeah,
I've just become so much more cynical in things. And I don't know if it's because I've gotten older or because of the show, but I went ahead and went back and finished 13 because I wanted to see if 13.2 did anything. Because I had been told, it's like 13.2 and, corrected all of the mistakes that 13 did. And so far, I'm not that far into the game, but so far I can pretty heavily agree with that.
Yeah. I'm considering playing it. I picked it up recently on the Steam sale.
Me too.
Because I'd heard so many good things about it. But
did you finish 13?
I got about 95% of the way through 13. Because what happened, like, I'd played through most of the game, and I knew I was nearing the final boss from things I'd heard from people. But the problem was I still had no idea what the hell was going on, or what the plot was about, or what my character's motivations were, because, like, the story in 13 isn't bad. The problem is the storytelling is absolutely terrible.
I blame Vanille.
I figured I'll just play it again from the beginning and pay closer attention and see if I can understand it. And I still couldn't understand it. And then I just read through all the entry logs, and I was like, oh, now it kind of makes sense. But at that point, I'd played so much Final Fantasy 13, I was just like, you know what, I'm just fucking done. I'm just going to go look up the ending on YouTube.
That's fair.
That's what I did.
Well, and also, like, the ending is basically a YouTube video. Like, it's fight, long cutscene, fight, long cutscene, fight, long cutscene. So if you just watch a YouTube video of the cutscenes, then you're good to go. And the fights weren't that interesting. There was definitely better fights previously in the game. So you weren't missing a whole lot by not doing the end fights yourself. But if you haven't started it yet, I realize that you are short on time as it is. But 13.2, so far for me, has a thumbs up right now. We'll see how it continues to go, though.
Yeah, it's on my list. I'm planning to knock it out before 15 comes out.
I am going to warn you ahead of time because it took me drastically by surprise. 13.2 is all about timey-wimey stuff.
Yeah, I've heard about that.
So just be aware
travel.
that the entire game is timey-wimey stuff.
That's okay. I can actually deal with that. I mean, like, I played Chrono Trigger back in the day.
Sure.
And it was all timey-wimey stuff, and it did it well.
Yeah, and so far 13.2 has done it well. And 13.2, I feel, will have much more replayability for me than 13 did. 13, it was all about, grinding through the sea stones, and I got real disinterested in those, like, 2 missions after I got the Chocobo. I was like, well, I'm done here. I'm gonna actually go back to the story and see how this ends. 13.2 though, I can already see why there would be reason to do much more, because there's a lot more that can be discovered and found rather than just Warcraft style, here's a mission, go kill bad guy, give you reward.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot more exploration that is open to you in 13.2, at least from what I have seen so far. So that's a very nice change from 13. And I think the thing that actually hurt 13 the most was the fact that the hallways, the super linear on rails, and the fact that you never get to talk to anyone. And I know that you're supposed to be, the convicts that have escaped and stuff like that, but even Avalanche and Final Fantasy VII got to talk to people, which you never get to do in 13. But you do get to do it a lot in 13 too. So again, thumbs up to them trying to fix problems and complaints from the first game. But you have to get through the first game for the second game to really do anything. Although, there's a neat thing about the 13.2, they have a beginner's primer in 13.2, which essentially plays all of the cutscenes and explains the story of 13, and then you can just start 13.2.
That sounds very, very nice.
Yeah, super intelligent idea, right?
Yeah, that's very... Well, I mean, that's pretty much necessary, because, like, if you have a really good first game, then you can just sell the sequel and expect people to buy the first game because it's good. But with something like 13, where it's kind of a slog to get through, it makes sense to do that.
Yeah. All right.
It's very appreciated.
I will, again, recommend it to you. I am going to go and spend some time with the family and edit the show and get it posted and stuff. You probably need to get ready for Formation. Thank you for being here, Florian. And hopefully we'll have Evan next week.
Hopefully life works out for him.
Yeah. All right, man. Take it easy.
Okay. See ya.
Bye.